Welcome back to the Pistons Jack YouTube channel. On today's episode, we'll be reacting to the Pistons' newest signee, and we'll also have an update on Malik Beasley and his situation. So let's get to it. Okay, first things first, the Pistons signed their 14th player to the roster after many weeks of fans and everyone discussing about who will they sign, what position will they play. Javonte Green is now a Detroit Piston. Per ESPN, he signed on a one-year deal with the Pistons. I presume it's a minimum deal, but this is a name I don't think I've seen anyone in the Pistons community bring up. But Javonte certainly fills a need on this roster. Just some background on him as a player. He's 32 years old. He's been in the league, I think, he'd be going into his 7th season. Originally started with the Celtics, spent 3 seasons with the Bulls, and last season was on the Cavs and Pelicans. His career numbers won't blow you away. He's primarily been like a 3rd or 4th guy off the bench, but for his career, he's giving you 5.5 points, 3 rebounds, 50% from the field, and 34% from 3 on about 1.5 attempts per game. His numbers are pretty much aligned with those career numbers last season. 3-point percentage is slightly down, but he took a whole other 3 at around 2.5 per game. So what you're getting is an athletic defensive first small forward. I think some fans believe he could fill some of those backup 4 minutes, and I'll talk about the depth chart in a second. But when you look at where he played his minutes last season, Basketball Reference has it split up in percentages. He played most of his minutes at small forward and some minutes at the 2. But he has shown when he was with the Bulls, and I think the Bulls for those 3 seasons was where he had his most consistent role, and that's where I came across him and really enjoyed watching him play. Just as a neutral fan, but he played some power forward there, and for his career he's played about just over 10% of his minutes at power forward. So he is only 6'5", but his athleticism helps make up for some of that lack of height, and he does have a 7-foot wingspan. So I could see him for sure playing some minutes at the backup 4, but I think he's primarily a three man at this point of his career. The rebounding numbers are solid considering the amount of minutes he plays, but when you talk to some Bulls fans and you see even what some Pelicans fans had to say about him in only his brief stint with them, he's a high-energy guy, defense first. So I think he's going to fit really well into what the culture that the Pistons have built in the last season, and I think whilst I'm not sure, like I said, he plays a lot of minutes, especially consistently, I think he's a guy that Coach JB and the coaching staff will really like having on the team. And just going through his Instagram and watching some highlights, he seems like a really good vibes guy as well. Seems like he's got a good sense of humor. So I'm sure that will fit in with the Pistons and kind of what they built last season as well, because they were tough, hard-nosed team, but they also had fun. And I think that's crucial, especially considering the young core on this team is going to be leading the way. I think he'll fit in really nice. But that's kind of who he is as a player and what he's done to date. So let me know your thoughts. Like I said, just to confirm, it's a one-year deal. I presume it's a minimum. There hasn't been any reporting on how much, but I would guess it's a minimum deal. But let's move on here. As you can see on the right, this is the updated Pistons depth chart. This is, in my opinion, what it looks like. And you can see I have Green there as the 3rd string guy at small forward. I got some people pushing back to me on Twitter about having Ron at the backup 4 right now, but I personally just think that's where Ron's going to play at least half of his minutes. But I can see why you would want to put Ron behind Asar at the small forward, but it's like either way, I think Ron will play some minutes at the 4. Maybe it's Asar plays him at the backup 4, but that's how things are looking. Like I said, I don't expect Green to be a part of the rotation. I think he will play minutes if there's injuries or if players need rest, especially after the All-Star break. But to me right now, I think the Pistons have a solid 9-man rotation. I think it's obviously you have Cade, then you have Ivy, LeVert playing Asar and Duncan Robinson. Then you have Tobias and Ron, and then at the center, JD and Stu. They're the 9 guys I think play most of the minutes. I think pretty much every player there is going to be should be playing around 20 minutes or more. Obviously, the starters will play more than 20 minutes, but LeVert, Robinson, Ron, and Stu, I think all of them will be playing 21 minutes or more, at least on average. Maybe there's games here and there they play less, depending on how the starters are performing. But in order for them to play around that 20-minute mark or more, I don't think you can have 10 players playing minutes. So that's kind of my opinion. Obviously, there's situations where games are blowouts and the minutes aren't going to be like that. But just on average, I think in order for those guys off the bench to be playing around 20 minutes a game or more, I think you go with a 9-man rotation. Of course, there's going to be injuries, so there's a very high chance all 9 of these guys only don't play 70 games together. But that's where I'm at. As you can see, like I said, Javonte there, I think is purely there for depth. Maybe he's the 11th guy. I think if you added a 10th person to the rotation, it's probably Marcus Sasser right now for me, or maybe it's B-Ball Paul. But that's kind of how I see it. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, because it sounds like, and this is going to transition us to our final topic, but I would say these are the 14 players that the Pistons will have on their roster until the start of training camp. I think I don't expect them to sign anyone else. They obviously have 1 roster spot left, and we'll talk about that in just a second about who that could be going to. But they've signed all their two-way guys. You can see on the depth chart, they're the players with the asterisks, and then they have 14 rostered players with 1 spot left. So this brings us to the final topic of the show, and not just me, but it sounds like people around the NBA think the Pistons are saving the 15th roster spot for, and that is Malik Beasley, Brett Siegel from ClutchPoints, national reporter. He's been pretty good with his reporting this summer, so I do take this report pretty seriously. He says, lots of people have been asking around about the Pistons' 15th roster spot. My understanding is that they are keeping a spot open for Malik Beasley pending his off-court problems. Until the gambling investigation is over, his NBA future remains a mystery. So that's kind of nothing new that we've been talking about on this channel and on the live streams about how we were kind of assuming the Pistons were keeping one of the 2 roster spots open for him to see what happens with his situation. Obviously, Malik is still innocent. I believe I don't have Snapchat, but I believe he was posting on Snapchat that he had a court hearing, one at 7 a.m. and then one at 6 p.m. in the same day. So I think by the time of recording, that's happened. But I haven't really read anything else. But he's been posting on his socials saying, wait till I hear my side of the story. Obviously, from his side, he's innocent, and we'll see what happens. I hope he's innocent, because if he is, I think adding him back as a 15th man on a minimum would be incredible. Because if you just look at purely at what Malik brings skill set wise, it kind of is probably what this roster's missing. I think Duncan Robinson initially replaced Malik leaving, but I don't think the Pistons have really replaced the shooting that Tim Hardaway Jr. brings. I think they've kind of upgraded a lot of what Tim did with Karis LeVert, but Karis doesn't shoot anywhere near the way Tim Hardaway Jr. does. So I think if you could add Malik back, that feels, at least for my opinion, the last void on the roster, which is kind of just that really reliable 3-point shooter, or at least that elite 3-point shooter that teams won't leave open. So I think Malik would definitely, obviously, fill that. So we'll see, though. I don't know how long this investigation will take. It's not just the NBA investigating it. It's a federal investigation. So I think that Terry Rozier one's still going. He's only playing because he actually has a contract. And I think the Jonte Porter one took a long time to play out, at least 12 months. So he was obviously guilty. Even if Malik's not guilty, I feel like this might be a long process. But either way, it makes sense for the Pistons to keep their roster spot open and wait, because they obviously don't have any pressing needs to sign anyone else. I know people are a little bit concerned about the backup 4 spot, but like I said, when you look at the depth chart, the minutes I just spoke about, I don't think there's a pressing need to go out and sign someone. Makes sense to wait and see if there is a chance you could add Malik back, if he's cleared, of course. But we'll see what happens. But that's going to do it for today's episode. Let me know your thoughts about the Javonte Green signing and, of course, the Malik Beasley thing. But till next time, as always, go Pistons.